Trump's been fined for breaching his gagging order, and former members of his legal team have pled guilty in the Georgia subversion case. But who is it that really subverts democracy? And is there any crime that warrants the closing down of free speech? And what is the agenda of Trump's opponents? To bring about justice or bring an end to Trump because they fear him? Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom, which involves skipping through systemic hurdles and across a quagmire of peculiar bureaucratic obstacles. The question we're asking today is, now that Trump's been fined for breaching his gagging order and former members of his legal team have pled guilty in the Georgia subversion case, where does that leave Donald Trump and his campaign to become president in 2024? And what is the agenda of Trump's detractors? Is it like they are objective guardians of democracy, righteousness and justice? Or is it that they fear Trump as an opponent and are just throwing the kitchen sink at it and trying to bring down Trump because they don't think that they can beat Trump in the 2024 election? Now, obviously, most of you, I guess, presume that it's the latter. And because of a total lack of trust in what you might call the establishment, the legacy media, the judiciary, the state, careerist politicians who claim to be righteous but are plainly capable of the same corruption, demonstrably in some cases. And for example, Stacey Abrams denied an election result in Georgia not that long ago. The whole Russiagate hoax was comparable to many of the things Trump's being accused of. So what is this story really about? I think there's a pretty strong case for saying that the establishment want to shut down all dissenting voices and remove any alternative to their globalist, corporatist agenda. Is that a fair argument? I mean, are you seeing that elsewhere? Let me know in the chat. Remember, we stream at these times every day on Rumble. Download the Rumble app and become a member of our community. It really helps us. And comment below. Let us know what you think about this story. Let's get into it in a little more detail right now.
In the day's other headlines, a judge in New York fined former President Donald Trump $5,000 for violating a gag order in his civil fraud trial. Judge Arthur Engeron had ordered Mr. Trump to delete a social media post attacking a court staffer, but it stayed on the Trump campaign website. A defense lawyer called it an oversight. The judge said, quote, "This is a blatant violation of the gag order."
They should change the name, because gag order doesn't sound like something that the goodies would do. We're going to use a gag on you. A gag? Hold on, shouldn't I be able to talk? What about the gag?
Defenseless youngsters were tied up and gagged in the living room.
Now, I suppose one of the big questions that emerges from this case is, do you trust authority anymore? In order for a gag order to be imposed on someone, you have to, I suppose, loathe, mistrust the person upon whom the gag order is placed, and trust, admire, and support the institutions that are imposing the gag order. But there's a strong suggestion, through polls not least of all, that every time Trump is penalised in this way, his support grows. His supporters like him more. If you love Donald Trump, does this make you like Donald Trump any less? Does this make you think, oh, bloody hell, he's violated a gagging order there? Plus, his former legal team are pleading guilty. Or do you immediately think, oh, well, the system are trying to shut down Donald Trump because Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, he's plainly not an establishment guy. He's plainly not part of that particular club. And pleading guilty from the former legal team members, well, they've clearly cut some sort of plea deal, presumably, to testify against Trump. Do any of you think, well, this is new evidence? Oh, no, I'm going to have to reframe my entire perspective of reality. I mean, who at this point watches the news and goes, yeah, that's reality. That's what's going on. Thank you. Everything is as it seems. I can now continue with my life in full trust of these institutions that have not done anything in the last few years to make me mistrustful of them.
He stopped short of holding Mr. Trump in contempt, which could have meant jail time. Meantime, a co-defendant of Mr. Trump pleaded guilty in the Georgia election interference case and got 5 years probation. It also came after another lawyer, Sidney Powell, pleaded guilty Thursday to misdemeanor violations.
So what is the agenda of the gagging order and the ongoing persecution of Trump? Is it to bring about justice, or is it to end Trump's campaign and bid to become a candidate and indeed president in 2024? Does the derailment of Trump require his imprisonment, or would a conviction in this matter lead to him not being able to be on the ballot? What is the agenda here? Because plainly, after everything we've learned about, for example, Hillary Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign and Russiagate and the Steele dossier and the Hunter Biden laptop and the impact that potentially would have made in the 2020 election. We can't just go, oh, well, this is just what they say it is. You can't anymore, can you? So even if you aren't an ardent Donald Trump supporter, and even if you have doubts about these actions in Georgia, that still doesn't detract from the plain fact that you can't trust the Democrats either, who are plainly trying to create some censorship surveillance state where the impediment of free speech, the curtailing, the censoring of free speech, the shutting down of free speech is an overall agenda, in particular with Donald Trump, but also everybody else as well. Last week, US District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan, overseeing United States versus Donald Trump, issued a gag order prohibiting a leading presidential candidate, Donald Trump, from engaging in speech aimed at government staff, among others, during his trial. There is some disdain among conservatives for the former president, but if you're cheering on a judge who's inhibiting political speech on rickety grounds, you're no friend of the democracy or the Constitution. Mr. Trump may still vigorously seek public support as a presidential candidate, debate policies and people related to that candidacy, criticise the current administration, and assert his belief that this prosecution is politically motivated, Chukton explained. But those critical First Amendment freedoms do not allow him to launch a pre-trial smear campaign against participating government staff, their families, and foreseeable witnesses. Now that sounds reasonable and actually standard, but is that what this is really about? Is this about ensuring that justice continues with its unabated trajectory towards empirical demonstrable righteousness, or is it to foreclose on the ability of Donald Trump to communicate effectively because he's a genuine threat to the system? Let's keep looking at it and work it out. Who is Chuktan to dictate the contours of a presidential candidate's political speech? What if one of the participating government staff or a family member is compromised by partisanship? Moreover, preemptively suggesting that without gagging, Trump will engage in a smear campaign is as prejudicial to the case as any of the inflammatory things Trump has thrown around. It implies that any accusation now aimed at the prosecutors is untrue. We can't bring you this content without the support of Sticker Mule. And in fact, honestly, there'll be no point in bringing you this content without Sticker Mule. They've created this limited edition sticker pack. There are 6 stunning designs that are only available in this pack. They're all made with Sticker Mule's magic touch. Sticker Mule has 10,000 of these packs ready to deliver to your address absolutely free. Just go to stickermule.com/Russell and fill out the form. It's stickermule.com/Russell and get a free pack of amazing stickers. You can adorn your clothes with them. They're fantastic. Sticker Mule. Damn loyal. Damn good company. Sticker Mule. Okay, let's get back to this then. Trump contends that he is being railroaded by special counsel Jack Smith, the longtime federal prosecutor who works on behalf of Democrats and Joe Biden. You might believe that the special counsel is a chaste defender of Lady Justice, but there is ample evidence that partisan considerations are at play. Fears of a politicized Justice Department are real. As we speak, the head of the Democratic Party is being mollycoddled by the state in a very similar case involving classified documents. If you don't believe in the objectivity of the judiciary, then these kind of measures become unsustainable and non-applicable. They can't be applied. Unless you think that the Justice Department is independent, unless you ignore that there are whistleblowers within the CIA and FBI currently making claims about the Biden administration, it's difficult to think of these as objective organizations. It's the same with the media. You're at a point now where you, broadly speaking, do not trust the legacy media. You recognize that what they do is amplify propaganda, normalize the agenda of the powerful. You don't think, oh, wow, look at this. There's nothing to worry about. Or, oh, fantastic. This is terrifying. Like, we're at a point where the objectivity of these institutions has been interrogated and found wanting so severely that it's almost impossible to sustain the idea that there is a Justice Department that is from a place of neutrality and justice making value judgments on Trump or Biden or you or me. What it appears, I think, to all of us is these institutions have been co-opted and are now subsidiaries and secondary to higher interests that are difficult for us to entirely assess. So at this point, there is no real trust. You can't say, oh, well, if the Justice Department have gagged Donald Trump, obviously Trump must be saying things that are harmful to justice, the justice system that we respect. You have to always think, I believe, no, probably what this is they're trying to just destroy Trump because he's a genuine threat and they'll just use anything. They'll say anything. I mean, that is how the system appears to work to me at this point. Whatever the case, the Justice Department now plays a big part in Trump's campaign for the presidency and probably his legal case as well. If the state's accusations can be spread throughout the media before a trial, why can't the defendant speak openly as well? It would seem to be unfair that accusations and cases can be made almost a totalitarian media campaign. As Joseph Stalin said, quantity has a quality of its own. If every single news outlet is saying the same thing, condemning a person, particularly if that transcends other principles of justice like innocent until proven guilty, you have the right, I think, to question whether or not there's another agenda at play. If you bring that into a context where none of us really trust the legacy media anymore, we know that they lie, we've seen them lying, we've seen their values shifting, and you apply that to a story like this one, where the judiciary appear to be biased in the favour of a particular political outcome, seemingly that outcome being, we do not want Donald Trump running for president next year. And that what's obfuscating that is, oh look, he's done this now, oh he's done that now. I'm obviously not in a position to say, there's no way Donald Trump would tamper in elections, so who knows what Donald Trump's capable of. But what is clear is the agenda of the powerful is being supported, it seems, by the judiciary and certainly by the media. What do you think? Let me know in the chat. In the name of fairness, Chuckton contends that Trump does not enjoy unfettered First Amendment rights because he might intimidate witnesses. It's already illegal to intimidate witnesses. Charge him if he does it. This is happening a lot around free speech issues. They're using ideas that everyone agrees with. Don't intimidate witnesses, don't use hate speech, don't have child pornography. All of the things that we're like, yeah, of course, yeah, of course, yeah, of course. But there are laws already for all of that. You can use the existing laws to prosecute people for those ideas. When it's like, and because of that, why don't we shut down free speech? No. You've just artfully moved into a new territory, revealing an entirely different agenda. You want to control dissent. You recognize that the tendency of the world is to move apart into broader, wider, more democratic spaces where a wider variety of opinions might be conveyed, where centralization is less likely, less plausible, and in order to ensure that the trajectory continues in the direction that the powerful would prefer, you have to manipulate the checker pieces around the board to say, look, see, we have to shut down free speech because, child pornography, intimidation of witnesses. Well, those things are already illegal. Laws already exist to cover all the other premises Smith has used to rationalize the gag order. That means the gag order is, by definition, unnecessary, right? The notion that a jury pool is going to be impartial in a trial involving a divisive former president who is not only a leading contender for the presidency but one of the most famous people on earth is absurd. And the notion a DC jury pool will be impartial when it comes to Trump is fantastical. There is little that can be done about it. But further gagging the defendant only feeds, at the minimum, the perception that this is all politically motivated. And I suppose that, the perception this is all politically motivated, I suppose that points to a problem that's even larger than this extraordinary one at the centre of current American democracy. What do you think is the motivation behind various current wars? Is it what you're being told? Is it like, we have to intervene in Ukraine-Russia conflict, humanitarian reasons, China are becoming more and more aggressive? The very reason you need to stop free speech, or the reason they need to stop free speech, whether it's Trump or you or me, is because there is the instant, immersive and global ability to go, excuse me, what about the semiconductor business? It doesn't seem that the counteroffensive has worked. What about 2014? Hold on a minute. Aren't there already laws that cover the thing? That they can't have that conversation anymore. More broadly than that, as I've said for a very long while, if the Democrat Party were serious about opposing Trump, they would change. They would change and become more reliable. They would become more accountable. Let's say we recognise we've created Donald Trump through our lying, for our willingness to be the party of big donation, the party of war, and we're going to change that immediately. We're so sorry. They're never, ever going to do that. They can't do that. There'd be no point in them if they did that. So what they have to do is ensure that you don't have any alternative, and ultimately will vote for them out of a kind of weary exhaustion. Establishment media informs us that the gag order is just narrow and meant to protect the integrity of the trial and the jury pool. In her Solomonic wisdom, Chuckton cut the state's request in half. A narrow gag order limiting free speech is still a gag order limiting free speech. The fact that Smith was seeking even broader limitations only makes Trump's claims more plausible. Smith has also argued that Trump should not be afforded special treatment because he's a candidate. He's right. No one's right to defend themselves or to engage in speech should be inhibited, not even during trials. Still, gag orders are almost always an unconstitutional prior restraint. For years, the ACLU and similar groups argued the same. Many people people simply believe Trump deserves it. Think, though, about the precedent. Administrations can now launch prosecutions against political rivals calibrated to take place in favourable cities and timed to coincide with elections, and then demand gag orders be implemented on those running for office. If you think they won't do it to others, you haven't been paying attention. Trump is a divisive figure. Even if you love Donald Trump, you know that, right? And you imagine that he's divisive because he's causing so much chaos, because he's not the usual type of politician that ascends to these kind of spaces. But especially if you detest Donald Trump, imagine just for a second the philosopher's friend, the return of Christ, and the Christians' belief in the actuality of that. If Christ were to return and were to say, we're going to reorganize the world now in tune with ethical and spiritual principles that are based on fairness and justice and love, and wherever we see injustice, we are going to address it and amend it. Therefore, I'm running for the candidacy of the Republican Party or as an independent, or heaven forfend as a Democrat. If Jesus Christ were to run, do you imagine that the establishment will go, oh, this is good, finally, Jesus is back, let's get this guy in charge so that we can all be saved? Or do you think that, like last time round, they would go, shut that guy up now, kill him, say whatever you have got to say to justify stopping this guy, because he's got an uncanny ability to make ordinary people realise they've not been voting in their own best interest for many, many years now, and that change is possible. So if you don't like Donald Trump, just imagine it with Jesus, and I'm certainly not making a comparison between Donald Trump and Jesus. That's the kind of thing he might do, God love him. But just as an exercise, what would they do if Christ returned? Would it be, oh, thank God, the Lord, you have returned to save us all? Or would it be, oh no, how are we going to run the world now for financial imperatives and imperatives of dominion? How are we going to keep people suffering through lenses of fear and desire? How are we going to lower the expectations of individual people, turn people against one another all the time, if there's a figure here now that's saying, whoever you are, wherever you're from, there is love within you, the possibility of awakening is available to you now, you are all welcome here, let's put aside our material considerations and find the light within. No, they wouldn't be like, oh, this is good stuff, would they? They would kill that guy pretty swiftly. But before they killed him, I imagine they'd gag him. No wonder Donald Trump has to be gagged, because let's face it, he is not a typical orator. Here he is comparing himself favourably to Alphonse Capone. And it's not often you think that Al Capone's full name is Alphonse, is it?
Today, a judge put on a gag order. I'll be the only politician in history that runs with a gag order where I'm not allowed to criticize people.
Where is Donald Trump right now? What is that backdrop? It's hay bales, isn't it? And why is there a children's book for sale next to this very serious thing that he's doing? Also, though, there's this book for kids available now.
Can you imagine this? Do you believe this? I'm not allowed to criticize people, so we'll see. We'll appeal it.
We'll appeal it.
And we'll see, but it's so unconstitutional. The good thing is we have so much support, it's incredible. And it just makes it even more so. Look, I'm the only guy that ever got indicted. I got indicted more than Alphonse Capone. Did anyone ever hear of Alphonse?
That's a natural laugh. That's not the forced laugh that you see in many political situations. Oh, are we meant to... Is this where we do a standing ovation? Oh, are we meant to clap now when someone's gone, this is why America's bloody well brilliant? And you're like, oh, God. Like, it's a genuine laugh. Has anyone heard of Alphonse Capone? It's like he understands comedy.
Al Capone, if you looked at him the wrong way, he was seriously tough, right?
He's not even actually condemning Al Capone, is he? He was seriously tough. He's quite admiring of Al Capone. One of the things I feel about our sort of mad puritanical time is many aspects of humanity itself are being cut off, like our nature. Our true nature is being questioned, our sense of humour, our love, our connection to one another. It's almost like the state wants to undermine every aspect of a human being till everything is just material, rational little blocks, till there's nothing natural or flowing or free or unquestioned, till we're just blocked and locked in shame and doubt and fear. And a figure like Trump actually is extraordinary because he doesn't run on that pathway. He ain't ashamed. He's not afraid. He's like, you keep indicting the guy, he's still sort of making jokes, but he hasn't been taking it very seriously, does he? Sort of amazing, really.
Scarface. You know, they call him Scarface. Had a little scar in there.
The scar in there.
I'm sure it was a minor accident, but he was Scarface. But Al Capone, if you looked at him in the wrong way, if he didn't like you, you looked at him a little bit askance, he blew your brains out. He was only indicted one time. I've been indicted 4 times. And in addition, I have these civil trials that are all coming out of the Justice Department. They've weaponized the Justice Department and the FBI.
I suppose the challenge is for Trump's opponents is many people find plausibility in Trump's claims. Even someone like me who years ago thought the idea of Donald Trump being president was risible and during his presidency had pretty serious questions about the nature of his presidency. At this point, I now believe that what Donald Trump actually is a disruptor to establishment incentives, imperatives, and overall agenda. I feel like even if you take your own opinion of Donald Trump and put it to one side, I like him, I love him, I hate him, whatever that is, if you look at him almost like it was chemistry, what happens when you put a droplet of Donald Trump into the establishment? It doesn't fucking like it. It doesn't like it. It's disruptive and destabilizing to the establishment agenda, whether it's from a war perspective, the fact that he just says mad shit all the time. That's, for me, what seems to be most significant about him. And then I know there's loads of you think, well, no, his policies are about economics, his policies are about, you let me know. But certainly, plainly, his claim that the Justice Department is being weaponized against him seems at this point more verifiable and true to me, because I don't believe in the moral legitimacy of the state at all. Do you? So the question that we're left with is, are these gagging orders and trials about finding the objective phenomena that we call justice, or is it the weaponization of the justice system so that establishment imperatives can continue unabated and unobstructed? Sometimes, whether it's COVID or Donald Trump or the war or any issue, if you place a subject to one side and observe the surrounding phenomena, you can come to a better perspective, because Trump is a divisive figure. COVID was a divisive topic. War is a divisive subject. But if you look at the behavior of institutions around it, if you look at the behavior of the media, the judiciary, the state, you're sometimes able to see how they are converging around a subject. And I find it so difficult to believe that the incentives of the state, of the Democrat Party, of the legacy media is, how can we help everyone? I'm not saying they are demonic forces. I'm saying that collectively, the momentum is towards the preservation of a set of interests that aren't really in alignment with the lives of ordinary Americans or ordinary people across the world. That's why I use the Jesus Christ example. All of the values that coalesce around any spiritual practice are completely abandoned, it seems to me, when ensuring that the system functions in the way that it's intended to. Do you trust the news? Do you trust the establishment? Do you trust these institutions? Unless the answer to those questions is yes, and basically it can't be, it never is, that would be madness, then you have to be open to the idea that this gagging order is about repressing free speech, not enabling justice to flow unimpeded. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the chat below? Have a look at these videos. Remember, we make our show every day at these times. We stream it live. You can join us. It's fantastic. It's fun. It's free. If you want to become a supporter of our community, when you get there, press the red button, become an awakened wonder, get access to more fantastic content. More important than any of that, though, is if you can, please stay free.